So real quick, we're going to take a look at the code that we're using. The first thing you're going to need on your Raspberry Pi Pico is the driver for the LCD screen. You're also going to want to import a few things. You're going to be importing time, you're importing uTime, machine, pin, PWM, and we're also going to import something called random. And then from uTime, we're also going to be importing sleep in milliseconds. And we're going to be using this in particular in order to put together some of our songs that we're going to use for this dice roller. Now, I'm going to tackle the process of putting those songs together in a different video. I do have a separate piece of code put together, and it's going to be on GitHub as well, with some templates for songs that are already populated, as well as the different notes and frequencies and how I got to those frequencies I'm going to address in that video. But for now, I'm just going to include the songs here and do a brief scroll through. One of the songs we're going to be utilizing is the FF7 Final Fantasy VII song. It's the one that plays when you win a battle, da 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 da, and Cloud swings the sword around, right? So that's one song that we have in here. We also have the song that plays in Legend of Zelda when Link opens a chest or finds an item, da 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 da. So you're going to see all these songs demonstrated a little bit later. And there's also one from another video game I really like called Chrono Trigger. And again, it's the song that plays when you win a battle. So these songs are already here. You don't have to worry about those. There's one more song that we added. And I just have it entitled Crit Fail Song, but it's the song that plays in The Price is Right when somebody messes up. So we'll put that in here as well. Now, again, we're not going to spend too much time on the song, so that's going to be its own video and its own piece of code that I'll put together for you. Another thing that we're going to do, though, is we're going to assign two different values, and there's going to be, or we're going to assign two different buttons, I'm sorry. And there's going to be two buttons on the wiring diagram, and the reason that there's two buttons is that one of them is going to be utilized for the second revision of this project. So we're really just going to be focusing on what I call the enter button. There's also going to be a right button that helps you cycle through things, but that's going to be a totally different iteration of this. This is going to be the really basic, raw, simple version just to kind of get you up and running. Now, you're going to see here that we have a variable called D20. So the reason this project came about is I happen to be a really big fan of role-playing games. My friends and I used to play Dungeons & Dragons quite a bit, and one of the staples of that game series is using a 20-sided dice, or what's usually called a D20. I thought it would be really fun to put together a project where you can have a digital version of that and be able to assign different things to it to get it to do cool things. I got the idea actually from one dice that I had that was gifted to me by one of my friends actually flashes red when you roll a natural 20. It's called the natural 20, meaning that you roll a 20 on the 20-sided dice, the highest value you can possibly get. And I thought, oh, that's a really cool idea. It kind of celebrates you getting that, 1 in 20 chance of getting the best possible outcome. And I wanted to expand on that and do it with a microcontroller and some Python. So that's what we're doing in this project here. Now, you're going to see this code is, after we do all the songs and everything, the code is actually fairly short. And again, this is a very basic version of this program, but I thought it would be fun to just kind of get the proof of concept of this working. So what we have here is we have two different strings that are going to be displayed on our LCD, and I'll throw it up here. But the important thing is that it actually displays this line of text here. It says D20 roller, press button. Now again, the button in this case is going to be that enter button, the one that's closest to the Raspberry Pi Pico on the breadboard. I'll put some diagrams in the documentation as well. And here is where the code actually really starts to get off the ground. So when you press the enter button, it's going to wait for 0.01 milliseconds. So that's what that is. So it's 0.01. And then when it returns back up to 1, meaning when it detects that it's been pressed and then unpressed, right? It will, again, wait for a little bit. Then it'll print a string that says D20. Now, if you remember, this value up here is a random integer, which means that every time this value is plugged in, it is going to be a random number between 1 and 20. So a random number in that range. And that's what we want. It's a 20-sided dice. You can roll anything from a 1 to a 20. And it's going to display that text in between two of these. I just thought it would be cool to kind of frame it with two of those greater than, less than signs. And then it's going to keep displaying press button at the bottom. And if it's a 20, it's going to have another variable that has a 1 in 3 chance of playing one of the 3 songs that we have listed above. So if you roll a 20 on the D20, there's a 1 in 3 chance that it'll play this song, there's a 1 in 3 chance it'll play this song, and there's a 1 in 3 chance it'll play this song. So again, we'll do a demonstration of that a little bit later. And then on the flip side of that, there's also a chance for you to roll a 1 on that d20, and if that happens, it plays that really sad song from The Price is Right. So this is a really simple while loop. It's just kind of going through, and the whole code is really just designed to show that you can roll a 1 through a 20, and if you roll a 20, there's a 1 in 3 chance it'll play one of these songs, and if you roll a 1, it'll play a sad song. So we have two different functions that can be called depending on what you roll, and if you roll anything in between, it'll just display the number normally. Now, there are a couple limitations to this. You'll see that, again, the code is very short after we put all those songs in there, so it's pretty brief. And the way that we're going to roll again, if we want to, is actually by cutting the power and putting power back into the unit and running the code again. Now, in this case, I'm running Thonny. I can simply hit this button again to run it. But if you were to rename this to main.py and load it onto the Raspberry Pi Pico as the base code that plays as soon as it gets power, you would actually have to unpower and repower it on to get it to run that code a second time, a third time, a fourth time, which is why I recommend having one of these little, I guess you can call it a kill switch, one of these buttons here that, I don't know if you can see, but turn on and off with that button built right into the USB cable. So that's a really handy thing to have for something like this. That is one of the limitations of this at this level. Now, the other main limitation of this, as you can see, is that it's really only rolling a d20. It would be really nice to roll several different kinds of dice, because not every role-playing game only uses d20s. In fact, Dungeons & Dragons uses a whole bunch of different dice. And there are some systems that don't use d20s at all. So adding a little bit of versatility to this is going to be the second aspect that we address in the level 2 version of this. The third thing that's a huge limitation of this is that it only rolls one dice at a time. Now, yes, it does play songs. It's kind of cool. It's a nice little novelty, but it's very basic when you really look at the code that's really being run. The rest of it's really just do this, do that, do this, do that. And then what it's actually doing when you press that button is really all just encapsulated in this couple, what is that, 20, 30 lines of code. It's very, very brief. It's very small. You can fit it all on the screen at the same time. So as we expand on this, we're going to be adding more functions like playing more songs, first of all. So maybe adding a couple different versions of the song that plays when you roll a 1. But we're also going to add the option to roll multiple types of dice. So sometimes you might want to roll a bunch of d6s, so 6-sided dice. Sometimes you might want to roll a bunch of d12. So really depending on what you want to do. There's going to be some other things that come up because of that, though, because as we roll different types of dice, we have to play a little bit more with how the code interacts. But one of the things that we really want to tackle in the next version of this is getting it to run in a loop so that you can keep going and re-rolling your dice and rolling different dice each time without having to cut power to the unit or without having to load it in a program and press play every time to run the current script, but being able to do it all from the physical buttons here and have it loop around within the code itself. So we're going to be tackling that in revision 2 of this, like I said. But I think this is a pretty good breakdown of what this code entails. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the comments. Other than that, I hope this serves you well, and have a great day.